Once again, you are now listening to the Paul McGuire Report. This is Paul McGuire. By the way, in my books that you should get and read and keep, or circulate them among your friends, but make sure you get it back, spread the word. They're available to you at a discount on paulmcguire.us. Get A Prophecy of the Future of America. A Prophecy of the Future of America goes into a deep dive on many subjects, but it goes into a deep dive on things like Operation Bluebeam, which is a technological virtual reality fakery, if you will, of Jesus coming back in the skies or some kind of alien ET invasion or any number of things. Now, this is something that's been worked on by the globalist elite, militaries around the world, is to present in the skies a panorama of living, multidimensional, holographic images that are so realistic and so lifelike that people will absolutely believe that UFOs or UAPs are descending down from the skies right in front of them. Or they will absolutely believe that they're seeing Jesus Christ, the Messiah, coming in the heavens with the armies of heaven. They'll totally believe it because the technology is now advanced to the point where all of this can be produced in a lifelike manner. So get yourself a copy of A Prophecy of the Future of America, Volume 1. How to deal with it and overcome it is in A Prophecy of the Future of America, Volume 2. And then be sure to get a copy of Power from On High. Power from On High not only deals with how to renew your mind and how to walk in the power of God, but Power from On High also exposes the Luciferian hidden connection between people like Aleister Crowley, known as the Great Satanist, spiritual counterfeits, spiritual deception, how to be an overcomer in any encounter with these forces, and to be not only intellectually overcome but spiritually overcome. When you understand intelligently and in an easy to comprehend manner the nature of the dunamis, the dynamite power of God. And you can get that at a discount right now at paulmcguire.us. Finally, this ties it all together. You and I, right now, are in the greatest battle for the hearts and minds of mankind in the history of the world. This explains the whole history of the world in a simple, it's simple, but it's fast-moving, it's not boring, it's documented, and it's intellectually sound. And of course, in the back of the book, this picture captures it all. That's the information booth. I'm standing casually below it. And then everything in this is a symbolic message. And then there's the American flag. And then prophetically, there's the time clock. And of course, what hour is the time clock on? The time clock is on. It's striking 12, the midnight hour. And this book will explain to you all kinds of stuff, like what Rockefeller really said, what Rockefeller's plan was for Communist China. Communist China just didn't raise up from the dust, for crying out loud. Communist China was engineered by the billionaire, trillionaire families like Rockefeller and Rothschild and the other international bankers. You need to read The Greatest Battle for the Hearts and Minds of Mankind in the History of the World. It also deals with, artificial intelligence. And then it just doesn't, so many Christian books, it's all about, they like to terrorize you. And they use the same formula as a horror movie book writer or a horror movie screenplay writer like Stephen King. Scare you to death type of entertainment. Well, first of all, my stuff is entertaining, but the goal is not to make or write entertainment or to leave you in a state of terror. That's absurd. The goal is to wake you up from a slumber, but then to supernaturally equip you with all kinds of power you need to deal with stuff as an overcomer. Some of the chapters include the elite plan to flee the earth and inhabit colonies on Mars and the moon. When I was a kid, that was straight sci-fi. Today, Elon Musk openly talks about his vision and dream to flee Earth and establish a colony on Mars. So anyway, Luciferian world empires. This stuff it has always been way ahead of its time. And then finally, well, go to paulmcguire.us and check out the books. They will feed you, nourish you, empower you. We live in a time where everything appears to be accelerating. I've noticed it in my private life. It seems every day is moving faster and faster. I talk to people and they remark to me about how everything seems to be moving faster and faster. Why would that be? Well, I think part of it has to do with the fact that you and I live in a time where there's a great unveiling going on. God Almighty, the Supreme Being, has decided, because He's King of Kings and Lord of Lords, He has decided that He is going to expose all over America, all over the world, the evil works of darkness that are bringing His children and innocent people into horrific captivity by the millions and millions. And by that I mean the demonic satanic cults. By that I mean the poor little boys and girls and young people, etc., that are the horrific victims of child sex trafficking, drug trafficking, how cartels are, and I talk about this in my books. I mean, I bring you up to speed like you wouldn't believe. One of the largest employers in certain South American nations is the MS-13 satanic drug gang that started in the streets of LA. I give you the whole bio in The Greatest Battle. They were into taking drugs, listening to satanic metal music, heavy metal music, and so they emerged from being budding Satanists to now being hired by the cartels to do the muscle work, to do the hit work, and to smuggle in and smuggle out drugs and children. So one of these days, sooner than you think, by the way, because one of the things I learned writing these books, and this goes back 10, 20, 30 years ago, where I learned about Operation Bluebeam and the desire to create a technological, cinematic, in the skies counterfeit of either an alien invasion or Jesus Christ returning at His second coming, or any number of things, in order to spread a great deception throughout the earth. And that's what this is really all about. You and I need to be strengthened in the Spirit of God. We need to be strengthened through reading the Word of God so that we can deal with these things. If there was to be an announcement regarding an alien genesis, and what would an alien genesis be? An alien genesis would be the public announcement that the human race, just think about this for a moment, the human race, it would be an announcement by authority figures, that the human race didn't come about through a hodgepodge of, skipping on stones like the Darwinian theory of evolution suggests. The Darwinian theory of evolution is on hard times, but they hide that. The system hides that from your children and from adults. They don't want you to know that the Darwinian theory of evolution has essentially collapsed among really thinking, intelligent people. Because there's no way, given the thesis proposed by the evolutionists, there's no way that mankind could have arrived in mankind's complexity the way the Darwinian evolutionary theory people suggest. So a counter theory is gathering momentum, and the counter theory is simply an alien genesis theory. It's the theory that mankind, you and I, we are really the offspring of a distant alien race, a race of extraterrestrials that landed on planet Earth via a fleet of UFOs, now called UAPs, and they began to breed with human women, which is kind of a modification of the fallen angel account, when the fallen angels mated with human women in the book of Genesis, referred to in the book of Jude and in the book of Enoch. And so the alien Genesis suggests that mankind came from the DNA or the genetics of some distant alien race. Now that, whatever you think about that theory, it's far more, and I'm not saying it's true, but it's far more plausible than the theory of evolution. So, all these people that know about this, they know that the government of America, the governments around the world are deliberately hiding this information from the masses of people, especially in America and other places. And the reason they're hiding this alien Genesis account of creation is because when you uncover the various aspects of the alien Genesis account of creation, along with that goes the following. And this is where it gets to be very, very heavy. Along with any kind of alien Genesis theory, immediately what comes to your mind are things like the massive Egyptian pyramids and the massive Egyptian city discovered under the Egyptian pyramids, and all this futuristic technology that was needed to create not only the pyramids, but the massive city recently discovered under the Egyptian pyramids. And not only are these pyramids found in ancient Egypt, but pyramid structures are found all over the world, in Russia, in ancient Babylon. And it's interesting that in ancient Babylon, the Tower of Babel, known as Babel, the Tower of Babel was built in a pyramid-type structure. Now, architects call anything built in a pyramid structure, that is technically called a ziggurat. So when you look at the Egyptian pyramids, they are ziggurats. When you look at what's left of the Tower of Babylon, which is primarily rubble, but looking at artists' renditions and projections of what ancient Babylon, the Tower of Babel, really looked like, you see it was built in a pyramid-type structure, thus a ziggurat. In Russia, on the floor of the Bahamas, you see the leftover pyramid structure buildings. And this pyramid structure building, this all came from ancient super civilizations. And with the ancient super civilizations, there's all this evidence of highly advanced technology, highly advanced science being utilized by people in the super civilizations. And I personally believe that, for example, the accounts of Atlantis was one of the world's most premier super civilizations. And it was ruled by Atlantean gods, which were also known as the philosopher kings or the scientific kings. It was these scientific kings or philosopher kings that ruled ancient Atlantis. And the Greek philosopher Plato wrote about this in great detail. In fact, all the modern hierarchies, all the modern occult hierarchies, all the modern globalist elite, all the proponents of the New World Order, they draw their organizational structure, they draw their plans from what happened or what went down in ancient Babylon, also known as Mystery Babylon. And that includes the building of the Tower of Babel or Babel. Now, not only does it cover all those facets of architecture and technology, and reportedly, according to the ancient historical legends, the people who ruled ancient Atlantis, the super civilization. They got out of control. They began to do a lot of evil things. And according to the historical accounts, the rulers of ancient Atlantis, including ancient Atlantis itself, was marked for judgment by the God of the universe. And so ancient legends report that a great flood occurred, submerging ancient Atlantis and the Atlantean Empire. And there's great debate in present time as to where this ancient Atlantis went, or what islands or what continents could possibly represent the leftover segments of ancient Atlantis. And there are all kinds of theories. One theory is that at the floor of the Bahamas, that is one theory as to where ancient Atlantis was. Other legends say it's the island of Thule or Thule, which is where the Nazis built their V-2 rockets. Okay, so when you look at, and I know I've talked about this before, but I always use this illustration because it's so simple, anybody can understand it. And it's simply an illustration that explains the spiritual nature of the United States of America. So I'm going to show you this again. This is a $1 bill with George Washington, and George Washington may have been a great leader, but he was also a Mason or Freemason. The proof of that is the fact that in the White House, on the ceiling, there are paintings of Washington wearing a ritualistic Freemasonic apron with the all-seeing eye on it. Now, when you look at the dollar bill, what do you see right here? You see over here, over there where my finger is, you see a pyramid. Why is a pyramid on the back of a US dollar bill? Well, why is it there? It's there because it refers to the pyramid occult structure. And above the pyramid, or kind of above the pyramid, we see the words "In God We Trust." That was put there to sucker punch Christians. The globalist elite are shrewd. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but they imitate the strategies of their father, the devil. And the devil, or Lucifer, is known for using the wiles or schemes of the devil, the Bible says, which means the strategies, the plans, the psyops, the psychological trickery operations. Satan and Lucifer is a master of these psyops. And so they know Christians are an easy demographic group to play. You and I, we've all been played one time or another in life. And what happens when you've been played, you're supposed to learn from the negative experience. It's supposed to function in your life like going to school and give you some street smarts so you don't get fooled again. So we see the pyramid. We see the words Novus Order Seclorum, which means new order of the ages. In Latin, that means new world order of the ages. So the Freemasons and the secret occult societies that formed early America planned for America to be the head of the new world order. That's what Francis Bacon advocated. Now let's remember something about Sir Francis Bacon. Sir Francis Bacon, he learned how to speak the Enochian angelic language. In other words, Sir Francis Bacon, known throughout the world as the father of modern science. Sir Francis Bacon, known throughout the world as the creator of the scientific method, which demands empirical evidence before a theory can be proven. Sir Francis Bacon, a globally recognized genius and father of the scientific method, was also secretly deeply involved in the occult. And so he taught himself how to converse with these Enochian fallen angels by learning the language of the Enochian fallen angels. And this language was known as the Enochian language, or the Enochian angelic language. And when he learned the Enochian angelic language, he was getting regular downloads of what was going to happen in the future of the world, what would happen between Great Britain and America, what would happen with the New World Order, and what kind of strategies needed to be implemented in order to win these global conflicts. By conversing in the Enochian angelic language, the Enochian angels told him, and then he was the top advisor for the British Empire. That's pretty heavy. And not only was he the top advisor of the British Empire, he was the personal spiritual advisor to the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth. So he went to Queen Elizabeth by invitation and to the heads of the British Empire, and he told them that he had been conversing with the Enochian angels by learning to speak and understand the Enochian angelic language. And he told these world rulers that Great Britain needed to re-engage America and economically, culturally, and socially conquer America. In other words, the Enochian angels counseled Sir Francis Bacon to counsel the British Empire leaders that they needed to not just give up on losing the American Revolutionary War, but they needed to get back in the game and subjugate America through economics, culture, politics, and military operations. Now, what does that mean? What it means to you and I, it should go off like the explosion of light from 1,000 suns. What that means to you and I is that cutting-edge groups in this world today, now please listen, I implore you to please listen very carefully to what I'm about to communicate to you. If you fully grasp what I'm sharing with you, it will radically change your life for the better. I promise you that. Cutting-edge groups or individuals around the world don't win the game of life. They don't win the games of geopolitics. They don't win the games of economic warfare. They don't win military warfare. Any other conflict on earth is not won by merely utilizing physical, logical, rational, mechanical type weaponry. Okay? That is extremely important. It's not to be disregarded or minimized even in the slightest because it's foundational. But simultaneously with a logical, rational, scientific approach, there must be, and this is what Sir Francis Bacon was getting at because he was the world's most premier scientist at that time. What Sir Francis Bacon, the reason Sir Francis Bacon was able to pass on military economic genius secrets to the world leaders that ran Great Britain and the British Empire and Queen Elizabeth of England was because he was downloading information that was coming from another dimension.